take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
Welcome back to another episode on Take Flight Podcast. I'm really looking forward to today's discussion, and we've decided to go with a mid-year review. So something which is really important in large organizations, and we've practiced this for a number of years now. We've ran this sort of format in previous episodes, and I think it's great to revisit it year on year. It's just taking the opportunity to reflect on how the last 6 months have been for all of us. You know, what has worked well, what has not worked so well, and what changes are we looking at making for the remaining 6 months. And it just gives you an opportunity to course correct, so I'm big on setting goals, setting a plan, and making sure that you can measure against that plan. So I'm really looking forward to dialing in with the guys today to understand, their take on the year so far, and, what are the outlooks moving forward and how we can help each other as well. And the whole idea is, as you're listening to this, get a pen, get a piece of paper, and just sort of write ideas that come to mind as you hear us sort of walk through this episode. So guys, with that, let's dive straight in. A general summary of how 2004 so far is tracking for you guys. I'll start with Shuel, and then we can go around the table.
Well, we're not doing any check-ins. Wow, straight into it. I like that.
But this bandwidth might not last, big man. Let's move.
Yo.
Pete, thank you for setting us up for what is going to definitely be a great episode. And actually preparing for this episode was a really good reflective exercise in terms of how the year's gone, etc. I think if I had to summarize it, if I had to give a score for the first half of the year, I'd give it a 7 out of 10 so far.
Okay.
I think from the business side of things, Ahmed Capital Group is on track. We actually received a planning permission this week for a project. So that's now 2 planning permission approvals. Projects are moving forward, 100% occupancy, things are all great. On the personal side of things, the first half of the year, it was really important to make memories with the family, travel with them, and create different moments together, which we've been able to do, and also spend time together with my wife, traveling as well. So from a family perspective, everything's been great. Business-wise has been great. And yeah, being able to tick off a big dream, which has been to move to America. So that's been brewing for a few years, and that's actually where I'm recording this episode with you guys tonight as well. So that's something that I'm really excited for the second half of the year. But overall, yeah, we'd give it 7 out of 10 for the first half of the year, and yeah, looking forward to the second half.
And then maybe just a quick question on that. Why do you think the areas that are going well have been going well?
I think those ones are similar to what you were saying in the opening statement, P, in terms of what gets measured gets done. And I think these are all things that aren't being measured for the first time this year. These have been measured now for multiple years. And every year it's just a case of making the goal a little bit wider and trying to be more focused on it as every year goes on. So I think these are things that have been measured for years. They've also been worked on for years. And it's naturally a continuation of that. So I hope that answers that question.
Just before I pass it on to Olu, you mentioned that you're a 7 out of 10. That's how you'd score yourself in the first 6 months of the year. Some people listening to that would say actually it's pretty good because you've got 6 more months to go. I know you personally, and I would say to you, what's the 3 points that you're, why not a 10 out of 10 at this stage of the year? Is there anything that you'd bring it down to?
Why not 10 out of 10? So I think there are definitely a few areas where I would have liked to have made more progress in terms of beyond the real estate investing in other areas. That's something that I think we've spoken about in other episodes. That definitely, I wish I been able to execute on more deals outside of real estate, but that's definitely a work in progress. I think also recognizing that in the midpoint of the year, which is where I'm at now, I am going through a transition period of relocating to another country and all the administrative hurdles that come with that, and also settling in. So I think I recognize that this kind of Q3 period, there will be a lot of changes, and I need to give myself a bit of space to create space for that change in itself. So if I end the year at 7 out of 10, then I would be pleased, but that is assuming that there's still a few things that I achieve in the second half of the year. If the year just finished now at this point, and between now and December I didn't achieve anything, then that 7 out of 10 would probably drop down to a 5. But I think at this midway point of the year, considering all the changes and all the other factors that I'm managing, I think overall I'm pleased. But as you said, P, there's definitely room to go, room to grow, and look forward to settling in where I am here and closing out the year strong.
Cool. Olu, thoughts on the first half of the year?
Yeah, so for the listeners, I'll probably start off with how I
track my goals. So I really try to focus, and I think she was sort of mentioned, I try to focus on 3 key areas. So one, financial. So what are some of your financial goals that you have? That could be either your net worth or gaining some level of income level. Second element I focus on is what I class as sort of relationship health element of that. So that would be, for example, what's your general health? How much do you weigh? Your level of fitness, how healthy you are, and then also the relationships that you might have. So spiritual relationships with a spouse or friends as well. And then lastly, the last piece, which I guess I class more as like personal and development. So that's sort of how am I going to develop myself, make myself better year over year. And then also personally myself, one of the things that gets me excited is traveling. So how often do I travel? So that's how I sort of categorize it in those 3 sections. Now, if I go through those 3 sections and how I rate myself this year, I'll say on the financial side, I'll probably give myself 8 out of 10. I've hit a lot of large milestones during this year. And to follow up from the question that you asked, well, how was I able to achieve that? Is basically by automating. I think, especially with my financial goals now, so I've simplified it by automating it. So in terms of how much goes into my investment accounts, what I invest in on a month-by-month basis, it's reached a point I don't even think about it anymore, and it just compounds and grows in that sense. In terms of, again, my fitness and personal one, I would say in that sense, health wise, I'm close to my goal. So I set a goal of weighing roughly around 90, 95 kgs by the end of the year. I'm at like 97, 98. The way I do that is, again, automating it. I picked up boxing this year. I go 3 times a week. I show up. As long as I continuously show up there, the end goal is going to be achievable and I'll reach it. And then also I do like diet plans. So again, doing the diet plans every single week, not doing takeout, eating it, automating it, I will achieve that definitely. I think elements that I probably need to spend more time with, I'll say relationships with friends, close ones. I'll say it's been a busy Q1 with selling my apartment, traveling, work, etc. So I haven't really been able to invest as much as I would probably want to in that relationship part. So on that level, I'll probably give myself a 7. So not the 8, I'll give myself a 7 there. And then in terms of like the development and traveling side, I'll say traveling, I went to Mexico this year.
Double digits.
I went to Mexico this year.
Double digits.
So that's definitely 10 out of 10. But in terms of the self-development elements of it, I'll put myself at a 4 or 5. I'll say that if I'm completely honest on that side, I felt I'm reaching a point of comfort. And I would say when you get to that point of comfort, you need to challenge yourself and say, okay, how can I develop and grow? One of the guys I look up to everyone on this podcast for different areas and different reasons, but Shawal, right? I feel the Shawal's always challenging himself every single year in terms of how can he develop himself, if it's an MBA, if it's some sort of course, training. I think that's something I need to start focusing on as I go into the second half of the year, on how do I develop myself. So that whole personal side, I'll probably give it a 6 because I still feel like that's the biggest area of improvement for myself.
Do you feel like you've reached a plateau with the personal development or with your general knowledge?
No.
Are you?
No. Far from. I think it's I need to sit down and say, okay, I think you look backwards, you say, where do I want to be in the next 5 years? And what skill sets do I need to be able to get to where I want to go, right? I think sometimes you get comfortable in your current situation. You're like, they're paying well, I'm doing well, I'm getting challenged on a day-to-day basis, but you're good at what you do. You get comfortable with it, right? And I always say you never know what's around the corner. I think we've talked about this on the podcast multiple times. If you work for corporations, you never know when there could be a restructuring around the corner. And if that does impact you, you need to be ready. And you can't just rely on your current skill sets. You need to re-energize, revamp yourself in the sense of skill sets. Like another massive place that we're talking about right now is AI, right? That's something I want to learn and get involved in. So I need to sort of look at opportunities there to develop myself. because if you don't move, you get left behind.
And so, actually, as you was talking on it, I was just thinking, this is why I love these kind of episodes, because if you're a loyal listener and fan, you should be able to connect Olu's sort of progress now to maybe, you know, a couple years ago, where you spoke a little bit about, like, for example, from a fitness standpoint, and not to make the joke, but like in the past, you wouldn't necessarily cook so much, you do more takeouts, and now it's less takeouts, more healthy nutrition. So it's every area is progressing extremely well. So that's why these conversations are great, because you can hear it even amongst ourselves. We can hear it and feel the change. Daniel,
Exactly.
how do you you know, your take on your year so far, and you know, your outlook on the remaining months to come? How do you feel? What's your take?
I think this topic's come at the great time. I say that because just in a professional setting, I have my I've had my mid-year review this week as well. So it's always a good time to reflect, both professionally and personally. When I think it from a personal manner, I just think I'm somewhat, I wouldn't say relaxed, but not as deliberate as you would be in a corporate setting. And that's something I need to sort of fix and maybe flip on its head. Not to say that I should not be so focused at work, but I should also be very deliberate in the home setting as well. And something we do at work is OKR, so objective key results, and we do them on a quarterly basis. And this is where you measure yourself quarter on quarter. And I think that might be a better way than doing a mid-year, well, for me anyway, better doing a mid-year and end-of-year check-in, just so that on accountability basis to make sure and ensure you're trending in the right direction. On a quarterly basis, you do a check-in. But how I'm seeing myself this year, I would say holistically, probably at a 0.65. Sorry, 65%. So 0.65 out of 10, out of 1. And I say that because there are many things that things have gone well, but I haven't actually measured, or they haven't been they've been a great outcome, but not one that I was desiring or was measuring or tracking against. But for the next 6 months, I think I need to be a lot more deliberate about what I want to achieve. And I've started doing that, about writing them down, putting dates as of, you know, by 31st, not even 31st. I think the first one was by 7th of December. And then I've put my goal there, because I'm also cognizant of the fact that, yes, you want the deadline by the end of the year, but really and truly, if you want to achieve something by the end of the year, you need to have sort of done it by October or beginning of Q4, because of just allow yourself that time. Similar to work, where you're judged on the full year performance, but everything is done by September, October. You know where you stand, or your managers know where you stand by Q3, Q4. And the last couple of months are just, you know, here kind of not throwaway months, but you allow yourself some leeway. And I always think that working up into the deadline, if you need that deadline, that extra week, is probably something that you weren't deliberate about achieving, if you're trying to really race against the time to achieve it. So I think I need to be better in the next 6 months of really holding myself accountable, writing them down, making them plain, and making them stretch goals, but ones that, even if I was to say I reach 80% of them, I would still be happy. Because I sometimes think if you reach 100% of your goals, maybe they weren't big enough, maybe they weren't stretched, you didn't stretch yourself enough at all. Something I was going to say to you, Shua, is that the fact that you said, you know, 7 out of 10, that's a great number. And I think if we are achieving or want to get 10 out of 10, we sometimes then reduce those goals to make them easier and, you know, easily attainable.
I love the fact that you say that, Daniel, because I always feel like every year you should fail to reach your goal. Because if it's really big enough, and I sometimes challenge myself and say, was my goal really that big? Like if I set a certain number, or I want to acquire 5 properties, just something random, right? If I acquired that, then I'm like, should I gone to 10? And if I failed and landed on 7, I still was above what I wanted. Now, it's just the psyche of understanding failing is okay, right? Because you don't want to then see, I failed and just always be depressed, blah, blah, blah. You want to live in the moment, but you also want to stretch. It's a balance of stretching yourself, but then also being comfortable with failing, knowing that you've actually progressed from last year. So I think that's the balance you need to have.
Yeah, I give a perfect example. I was in the gym today and I was doing military press, and I put the weight up. I was like, I shouldn't start on this because it's going to be tough to start with. Let me go for my 10 reps on a weight that I can do. Military press, good form, everything. I said, you know what? Let me leave it. Leave the weights on. And I think the first one I took going for 10 reps. I managed 8, took a break, then did the last 2. Second set, I managed the 10. I think I took a break at 6. Then the third one, I stopped at 5. Then at the last set, I was like, I'm going to reduce it. I said, let me just leave it. Even if I don't reach the 10, getting 5 at that higher weight is better than getting 10 at the lower weight. And it's psychological, just like you said, Olu, because you think, I want to get those 10 reps, and I want to say, yeah, I've done it. But if we increase the weight but can only manage 3, yeah, you've managed 3, but at least you've pushed yourself beyond your comfort zone, beyond your limits. And that's how you actually get stronger. That's actually how you grow your muscles, by going higher rather than just doing something comfortable and doing higher repetitions of it.
Yeah, really, really good takes.
And then I snapped my back. I'm joking.
That's not how we expected the story to end.
The thing is, I know you're not joking. Something tweaked. You tweet something.
No.
Oh, okay.
Nothing tweet.
What about yourself, P?
Yeah, so myself. So I'm tracking well, but I know I'm also hard on myself. And so coming into this year, it's been a product of sacrificing in previous years. I'm exactly where I want to be. I've planned for this part of my journey, my life, and I'm living exactly on the terms that I actually set out for myself. So from a standpoint of coming into 2024, I'm literally living exactly what I set out to do. And then I've kind of been saying to myself, well, how are you now going to perform as an individual has sort of left the corporation? You're no longer backed by that platform. And then how are you going to continue? So I think for me, I've done it into sort of 3 buckets. The first bucket is sort of family. Second one has been sort of personal, routine and health. And then the third one is sort of on the business side of things, real estate, etc. So from a family standpoint, I don't think I could ask for a better setup or situation. And I think it's when I think about the why and the driver, it's really being intentional about where you want your family to be, what area, what schooling, what's the absolute design, what do the details look like. So I'm really happy and fortunate to be in a position where I can actually say how we are now as a setup is kind of what I've set out to do, which is great. I think one of the things I've also learned, what's great about the conversation that we're having now is we're starting to learn a lot more about ourselves because we have years of history or reference to refer to. And so when it comes to sort of a routine standpoint, in the past, I would have perhaps been really good in sprints. So for 30 days and then kind of you fall off a little bit, back on again. And I've noticed a lot more consistency. Just, I think in order to, you need to, everything compounds, right? So when you start something, you're probably not going to be great at that thing you started until years after. And so it's knowing more about myself and realizing what actually makes me tick to be really consistent over a longer period of time versus what makes me sort of stop on certain things. So family's great. I haven't really scored it, but I just know that's kind of where I want it to be, which is great. And the idea there is to continue at that level. Personal side of things, fitness wise, good. Definitely want to improve on the fitness side of things for the second half of the year. On the business side of things, probably a mix. From a real estate standpoint, on progress, like we've raised over £250,000 in the last couple of months for the deal that we're working on now, which is good. I think I'm planning to schedule to get another deal under the belt. So if that doesn't happen, then I would score the real estate side of things very differently by the end of the year. And then where I've had to sort of learn a lot more about myself is sort of on the business side, right? So having left the company now and then looking to sort of kickstart a number of different business ventures, realizing you have to be very, very patient with new things, new ventures. And maybe that's where I'm being too hard on myself or expecting faster results. So but then I also think to myself, there's an element of no excuse. You should have got what you wanted to get done, so there's that as well. So I think overall good. For the second half of the year, the theme I have in mind is a theme of, if you want change in certain parts of what you're planning for, you have to demand it. It's not good enough just to want to change or you like to change. You really have to say, Ollie, for example, you're looking at from a fitness standpoint, boxing, there might be a certain skill level. You have to demand that skill level and then it will come. There's a saying that has really stuck with me that is actually shifting my mindset, which is around, you don't reach your goals, you only reach the lowest level that you're willing to tolerate from a standard standpoint. And so I've been looking at it very differently from a standpoint of, what are the lowest standards I'm willing to tolerate? And if I pay attention to that, that's perhaps where the shift is going to take place. because that's a very different lens compared in terms of how the year's been tracking, and then for the year to go. But it's yeah, I think to Shua's point, if you stop now, no matter how good the start of the year has been or up to now, if you stop now, you're only going to sort of not reach your primary end point at the end of the year. So it's really about continuing. I want to ask you guys. So I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that. I have a question.
I was just going to say, for the listeners, a lot of us have scored them out of, say, 10 or percentage. There are many different ways to score it. You can say what's going great, what's going like a traffic light system, what's green, what's going great, what's amber, what's going well, but needs to kind of continue or improve, and what's red, that's not going so well. Or even sometimes it's a case of assessing and maybe parking something for the time being so you can focus on other areas. So don't always feel like you have to fight on all cylinders and not reassess, readjust, or rejig your priorities or what the goals are for the year, because sometimes life throws curveballs that you need to adjust and continuously adapt. So that's also something. And also, as P said, when it came to family, he's not scoring it. It's a feeling. He feels great. And sometimes if it can't be measured that, for example, you want to invest X amount, you can't just say, I feel great about it. That one, there is a number. But when it's more of a personal feeling about family, it's like, okay, yeah, you can say, yeah, I'm feeling good about this. This is great. And it's not just the feeling of today. It's a feeling of over a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, great point, Daniel. I'll turn it back to you, Daniel, on this one. The question I have for all of you very quickly is, what's something new that you've learned about yourself in 2024 so far?
Something new I learned about myself is I can learn from P. P got me buying this gadget.
Would you? Yeah. Tell them. Yeah, that's.
Send me the link for it again. Send me the link.
On a more serious note,
actually, Daniel, while you're thinking, just for the listeners who maybe are listening to this instead of watching this, Daniel held up a camera, which is like a modern technological gadget,
gimbal.
And out of all of us, Daniel's probably the most technologically advanced. Then there's probably Olu and I battling for second place. But then right at the bottom, typically, is probably Pabila, which I'd say is a fair statement out of the four of us. But recently, Pabila has invested in some new gear. And now the roles have reversed, where Pabila has inspired Daniel to get some piece of technical equipment. So
and yourself and Olu,
change. And I bought it as well.
Do you know the funny thing? I said to P, the funny thing is, I've been monitoring this thing for the last 3-4 years, but I never saw a use for it. I bought a new camera, but then when
exactly
P saw the portability, just the ease of just using it, I thought, what?
Exactly the same, Daniel. And then I saw P in action, and I was like, "Nah, this makes complete sense."
P in action.
when he saw how easy it was, P can do it. I can do it too. P was smooth with it, doing selfie, the forward camera.
You saw me.
Smooth.
So just on that, that might be a focus for the second half of the year. So I'm trying to I want to stay in the lead with this. So I've got the Apple Vision Pro on order. I want to just stay ahead and see we're going from there.
Okay. I think just one thing, I'm just trying to think. One thing I've learned is I need to be more aggressive, but also take daily action. So I think that's it. One thing I learned is that I can become complacent when I start to see results. So, for example, I've kind of readjusted my fitness journey. And as you start to see progress, you start to maybe become complacent and take your foot off the gas, and then the eating habits can go wild again rather than stay disciplined and strict. That's what I've learned.
One of the hardest things to get to grips with. Yeah. That's an episode in itself. Olu.
Yeah, I think mine is, I think historically, I've had a crazy amount of capacity of time where I rarely say no. And then what I found that happens is you're moving in so many different areas or different focusing on so many different things that you're not able to grow something to a large amount, if that makes sense. So for me, I think the big thing I've learned is time management, and more in terms of the importance of saying no, so that I can focus on a few things that I truly want to achieve. So not to get myself so thin because I'm doing so many different things. Someone needs help here, or I'm working on that, or I'm trying to do this side business, or I'm trying to advance in work. And you're moving all of these things, but you're not making that large, massive play because you haven't had the time to focus on it. So for me, the big thing is just saying no more and focusing on 1-2 key things.
Sure. What have you learned about yourself?
Very quick on my side. I think the biggest one, and this is not just the last 6 months, I'd even apply it to the last 18 months, is that I have come to the conclusion that I never want to retire. So I've realized that I work best when I'm going full speed across multiple areas, or at least areas that I'm working in that are important to me. And if I have too much time on my hands, then it's actually not optimal performance for me. So I work better when time is a constraint. I work better when I can go 100% across the areas that I'm working in. And actually, if I have too much time, then I end up going in the direction that I don't want to go towards. So that's the key thing for me, is I actually never want to retire. I just want to keep working on big problems with great people and getting to big outcomes. That's the conclusion for me.
Yeah, very, very important lesson. For me, it's been around, as I mentioned, now I'm in an independent space. I've actually been spending, I think you could consider it learning about yourself. It's understanding how bad do I want success and at what level, and learning what price am I willing to pay in different parts. So it's like this, when you're at a certain stage in your career, you look at certain numbers and think, yeah, I'm gonna work towards it, without really knowing what it takes to get there. It's just you're attracted to it because it just feels like the currency to be in. And then as you're moving things forward, you start to wonder, is that what I really want? So I think one of the things I'm learning about myself is around how to best calibrate a vision, a goal, and pick what price to pay for. There have been some things in the past that I've wanted, and now I'm looking at it thinking, that's not worth the fight. I'd rather do something else. So that's actually really, it's probably one of the first times I've actually had this reflection or been in this sort of space of understanding what's worth fighting for and what's not. I know we spoke a little bit about our outlook on the second half of the year. Are there any, and some of you guys already touched on this point, I want to just bring it back to see if there's any concrete action points or something you focused on. What are the big ticket items you want to improve on for the rest of the year? Maybe one point per person, just to sort of bring your ideas home.
Yeah, I think I touched on it already. It's just in terms of self-development. So for me is, seeing if there's any qualifications, any courses I can attend based on areas that I'm interested or I want to get, or spaces I want to get involved in the future. So AI, it could be around technology growth, gadgets, etc.
Cool. Daniel.
Mine's to launch a podcast.
You're gonna roll out individual podcasts on you.
It's the way he says it as well. Go on.
It's common in the musical industry that a band comes together and they have very successful years. Then after a while, they diverge and they go on their solo careers. And I think it's
Justin
been a good
Timberlake.
run, 5 years.
He's setting up a play. He's setting up a play.
First time for the listeners. This is not the first time Daniel's had this conversation with us.
And it won't be the
No.
last.
I think this is your third. I think it's your third rodeo, isn't it? This is your third attempt.
It's launching a podcast.
It's all going on.
It'll be
Come on.
No, seriously. It's gonna be called Over the Top Line.
At least this one. At least this one can sort of have a bit more consistency in it.
I think
Go on.
one thing I want to continue is just to network more. There have been countless opportunities in H1 of this year that I haven't capitalized. Either one, just thinking, it's too much time, too far, and if I, let me not mince my words, making excuses. So I think that's what I want to improve upon for H2.
Daniel, if you find any events where you feel like
Look at him.
it might make sense for me to be there as well,
Look at him.
let me know. Seminars involved.
I would gladly do so, but many of them are closed.
Solo thing, big man. Solo. It's a solo thing, big man.
They close what?
It's an
They're
independent move.
closed events, but I will do my best.
If any of them become open, you got
Yeah.
my number.
The thing is, I know Daniel well enough to not even ask that question. You see what I'm saying? So low, big man. Is it me? I think it's me. So I think yeah. So my one of the themes I've paying attention to more is actually communication. A great idea poorly communicated doesn't impact the masses. And I think I'm understanding where I'm in my career or journey in life, and whilst English is my native tongue, it doesn't necessarily mean that I've commanded English language. And it's just understanding the power of communication, the power of telling stories and narrating extremely well with clarity. Because I think for us, we can be individuals whereby we might actually overlook our ability to speak even better because we're already English speakers. So I think for me, one of the things I'm definitely paying attention to is dialing in on the ability to master communication, because that actually touches every single area aspect of my life, from family to business to anything I'm trying to do over the next 20, 30 years. So that's something that I'm paying attention to.
P, when you look at that, look into storytelling.
Okay.
Because when I hear about communication and they say how to improve your communication, the key thing that they always say is it's all about storytelling. In any aspect of communication, is all how good are you able to tell a story to your audience, make them understand it, persuade them, etc. So if they have different modules or focus area, I'll say storytelling is
Cool.
the best.
All right, now noted. So we're coming to the end. I think it's been a really, really good. I learn a lot from these conversations, because even though you have your own thoughts on your own year, what you guys say provides additional perspective to consider. I put together 3 fire questions to close, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So the very first one is what belief have you held strongly for the last few years, but you've changed since the start of this year? Olu.
My big one is owning where you live. I think we've had a conversation about that multiple times. I was like, oh, look, it's better for you to own where you live. If you renting, you're wasting money, you're throwing money down the drain. I've become more accustomed to the idea
what
of
you know?
renting.
Hey, switch sides. Yes, sir.
But it's always dependent about your circumstances. I'm not married, right? And I feel like as a single guy, whatever you buy, your wife is not going to be happy with it. So why not wait to make that decision with your future partner? And remember that it's not a financial decision, because most of the time your money can be used better in other investment tools. So
I'm very interested. I'll be very interested to understand how long you decide to rent for, because I know your investment hat and how you think about. Yeah, I'll be very interested to understand, now that you're renting for a period of time, how long you decide to rent for before potentially owning the game. So let's see. But I'm very pleased to hear that you're going to experience renting, and you can see what it does for you. Shuo, what's the one belief you've held for a long time, and you've changed as a result of back end of last year, start of this year?
Yeah, so it was a great question to think about, Pavila, when you set the agenda up. I think I had to apply a broader duration of time. So rather than the last 6 months, I thought about the last couple of years, which fundamental belief has changed. I think the biggest one is the concept of settling when you're in a relationship. So 10 years ago, if you asked me, the reason why I didn't want to get into a serious relationship or long-term relationship is because in my head, I thought once I cross that barrier, then I will have to start to compromise and settle and do things that I maybe don't want to do, or not do things that I really want to do. I think I've realized over the last couple of years, and it's through the process of finding an amazing partner who's also willing to support your ideas and also vice versa, that actually a long-term relationship, a marriage, isn't necessarily settling, but it actually provides a stronger foundation to make bigger plays collectively that you probably wouldn't do individually, or want to do individually, or could even do individually. So that's really been the biggest belief change for me in recent years, that actually a relationship isn't a form of settling, even though no one said it was. This is clearly a belief that I had in my mind. But actually, you can flip that, and it can become a foundation to make even bigger plays.
Very important just to mention there that it has to be with the right person. If you settle with the wrong person.
Then it could be
So
the other way.
just a very tiny detail to add to make it very clear. But so for me, one of the things I've been wrestling with and I've kind of come to a conclusion is around I'm on record for saying that I think it's more important to understand how to drive revenue and sales and learning that skill before you learn how to invest. I think it's more important to understand that than the latter. And the reason why I say that is because I look at my investment career so far and I think about one of the things I haven't done over this period of time is I was so obsessed in investing at an early age. Fine. Yes, it compounds. But I didn't have the mindset or wasn't gifted of the opportunity to look at the importance of growing your top line, whether you're an employee or you're an independent person, growing your top line, because the highest level of productivity is driving a top line. So if I had to redo my career, I would actually focus on investing at a later stage, late 30s, early 40s, and focus my early 20s and 30s into developing skills on how to understand and drive top line. Because a couple ways to look at that. That I think is one of the most important skill sets for any company that wants to take you on and build a team. Mm-hmm. And it's also very important as you as an individual, knowing that in any market, you're able to understand how to put together products, offers in order to drive the top line. Investments are a totally different skill set. And I do think that whilst we do sell the narrative of invest early, I can't help but think if you're only investing a very small amount of money at an early age, no matter how much it compounds, it's only a small amount. So that's where I am.
Don't disregard that. Olu will disagree.
No. Yeah, but the thing is, you have to disagree.
Compounding.
No, but wait. Please disagree.
That's saying don't pay into your pension.
Yeah. Wait. But that you have to disagree in the context of is it better to learn how to drive revenue? Is that a better skill to learn in your early years? So my point is if I said to you, should you invest early or not? Of course, the answer is yes. If I said to you, what skill set do you think is best to teach your next generation? Which one would you go for first? I'm at the mindset now that I think that my children or my mentees should learn how to drive revenue.
YouTube.
What's YouTube? So that's my perspective. I'm not looking for people to agree.
And quickly, lastly, from me, I would just say from a more of a personal human interaction perspective, that it's really, as much as I thought conversations, whether it be video or phone, or frequently are good, I think in-person interaction, in-person connections are really, really important. And I said this on a few episodes back as a group, but I just think it's really important to connect people on a human, physical connection level. And as much as you can, if you've got family, friends around the world, to make time to see them in person, because they just eclipse the phone interaction, whether it's video or audio.
Yeah, guys, thank you for the insights, contribution, and taking time out to reflect in preparation for this episode. For me, I love these ones because I love setting goals, setting a plan, setting a vision, and then whatever the opportunity I get to discuss it with people who are like-minded, it's great. I just really hope that people listening to this episode can take the conversation and use it to discuss with their own friends and figure out, have that conversation around mid-year review and how to think about second half of the year. For my personal research, on social media, I realized this is actually not an easy thing for people to do. So you'd be surprised how impactful this kind of episode is for people. They just don't know where to start. So I'm hoping that this can really help them in shaping their thinking. And with that, I'll pass on to Daniel.
Great. Won't say anything further, but if you have any feedback for us, find us on Instagram at Take Flight Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube under the same tag and on TikTok as well. So until next week, for another episode, stay safe, stay well, and God bless.
Take off, take flight.